So happy that you could join me for this edition of In the Hot Seat as we're gearing up for the 2024 season. And as you've been noticing, folks, there's been a bit of a theme with our hot seat as of late. We're introducing you folks to up and coming drivers and those who are ready to make their names known in the world of motorsports. So, on this edition of In the Hot Seat, I am pleased to be joined by a fellow Texan, an actual Texan, unlike me, because I'm fake and this one's not. 18-year-old Sally Mott is joining me here in the hot seat from Victoria, Texas. And if you haven't heard about her yet, well, you're in luck. We're going to introduce you to her because she's going to be a name to be reckoned with, not only next year, but for many years to come. So, Sally, thank you for making time today to join me here for the podium finish. How are you doing today?
I'm just living the dream. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. It's just about the end of November, so when folks get to hear this, they're probably freaking about Christmas shopping or holiday season shopping. So I'm like, I've got it made in the shade. I hope you do too.
Mm-hmm.
Good times, because people just need to be reminded of the holidays when we can clearly just tell them anytime you want. But anyways, not to talk about shopping right now, but obviously I've done a lot of research about you. We've been talking before this, and it's quite evident just how much you love racing. It's a passion of yours that you and your father Robbie have in common. So, before you got into your first go-kart, I was just curious, what were your first impressions of racing, whether it's a memory of watching a race on TV or when you got to attend a race in person? Like, what stood out to you as a kid when you saw racing?
Well, I vividly remember walking into the living room multiple times, and my dad's just, laying on the couch after hard days of work or whatever it may be. And he always had Formula One on the TV, and that was a time when Lewis Hamilton was on his win streak. And so I would hear over and over, Hamilton, Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton, Hamilton. Like, I'm like, who's this Hamilton guy? I was like, that's such an interesting name. Like, I don't know why. I just remember thinking that the name Hamilton was really interesting. I was like, huh. And then I would sit down with him and watch, and I was like I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, wow, cars are going really fast on the track. But I was like, that's pretty cool. And growing up around like karting and stuff, my dad, he's multi-level national champion. And so I would go to his races and, see him win and podium. And I would just think in my mind, like, wow, those things are going really fast. It's pretty cool, right? I was just like, huh, I didn't really know what to put together. And then we started going to the track. And when I was about 8, I was just driving around and, I was I told my dad I was too scared to race for some reason. I wish I would have started sooner because I would have had more experience by now, but it's all good because everything happens for a reason. But I would go out there and drive, and he wouldn't let me drive the wrong line. He would make sure that if I was going to be out there, even if I wasn't racing, I needed to be practicing the right racing line. And then so once I started doing like test days out at Katy, GCKI is my home track. Um, Once I saw it on the TV again, I was like, oh, like I kind of made that connection. Like, okay, like I've driven before and I've been on a go-kart track. Like it's probably similar to F1, maybe. Like in my mind, I was like, I got this right. Little did I know. But those are my like early memories of racing. I was very intrigued.
That's so cool. And the fact that you caught Lewis Hamilton during those title runs with Mercedes and how it stood out to you. It was like a little imprint to watch a driver of his caliber kind of be like, and your father, of course, too, and then being the impetus for what you're doing. And I remembered on your website, your little biography, you were saying, I'm afraid to race against the boys, but you were eventually overcame that fear. Was it a case where you were like, you know what? My go-kart doesn't care what gender I am. I'm just gonna go and give it my best. Is that what you thought to yourself?
Honestly, kind of the opposite. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna kick their butt because I'm a girl. And I was like, just because I'm a girl, I gotta win. I gotta beat all the boys. Like that was that was kind of my motivation. But you're right. I mean, your go-kart, your car, like regardless of what you're driving, like it doesn't know what gender you are. It doesn't know what color you are. Like it all it knows is that there's a driver in the car and it's going to be driven. And so that's the beautiful thing about racing. But I've always looked at it as like I'm a girl, so I need to work harder, right? Physically, mentally, because I'm a girl, like, guys are like, oh, if I show her a nose cone, like in karting, if I show her a nose cone, she's gonna lift, she's gonna let me have it. And as a girl, you have to be more assertive. You have to be like, nope, I'm putting my foot down. I mean, literally, like the throttle, you know what I mean? Like, nope, I'm not gonna let you pass me. And also on a business side of things, it's more work, but I love it, and I think it's definitely paying off. And it doesn't feel like work actually because I love it. And so I think it's an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time.
I like what you said about how you have to work a little bit harder than what, the predominant gender or individual is in racing. Because let's face it, it is primarily white Caucasian men that are racing. And here you are, you're like, well, I'm a girl. I'm gonna go and whoop your, you know what. And that's a good mentality to have because I often hear from girl racers, they're like, I don't want to be a girl racer. I just want to be a racer. But you're using this to your
Yeah.
advantage, if you will. And I like that because was there a particular female driver who inspired you, or are you kind of thinking like, I'm going to be a trailblazer here? I know there's no one like me, so let me make my own little contribution to racing.
Well, like what you said about I don't want to be a girl racer, I want to be a racer. I totally agree with that, but I also think that there is advantages of being a girl. But to answer your question, I don't know. I look up to not just girl racers. I have a lot of like idols, like guy racers. But in my mind, I think like I want to be a trailblazer. Like that's just I don't know. It's just deep in my mind. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I want to be like this person. I want to be like this person. I just want to be myself. I want to be unique. I want to be my own and trailblaze in a way that's not been done before in racing. Um, you know, as my own brand, like maybe in the future have my own racing team and promote Sally Mott Racing. Maybe it's a driver academy or something like that. But I think the right answer to that is trailblazing.
I like it because it's like not to compare you to someone else, but it reminds me of the spirit that a Janet Guthrie had or a Lynn St. James had. And to me, we kind of need those powerful female figures in racing just because
Sure.
I mean, I'm a guy and I don't view it like, oh, women can't be in racing. I'm kind of one of those guys who are like, you know what? We need the diversity. We need the women. So I'm always puzzled by the fact as to why guys are so resistant to girls racing. Like, why is that? Shouldn't we be happy we have challengers out there, regardless of gender?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just because it's different. And I think at first, if you go back in history, like everything that's different, people are scared of. Not scared of, but they challenge it, right? And I think now, especially now, it's becoming more normalized. And women in motorsports is becoming like very prevalent. Like if you look at Mazda, for example, they're promoting women and they want more of us in their series. And so they're offering a women's initiative scholarship, top finishing female. Like they're offering more money. Like, hey guys, like join the series because we're offering money. We want more diversity. And I'm seeing that not just with Mazda, but like everywhere. Even just like scrolling through my Instagram, I'm like, oh my gosh, here's another female racer. I've never seen her before. Follow, scrolling through. Oh my God, here's more. Oh my God. And I also I got to go to the WIMNA summit in Phoenix this a few weeks ago, and it was kind of cool because all these faces are only familiar to me on Instagram, so they're kind of like micro celebrities in a way. And I'm like, oh my God, they're all here, like, and we were all female racers, and it was just like this is my community. This is just I've never felt anything like it because it's so niche. And so when we were together, I'm just like, wow, this is really something special. We're a family because we all share this one specific thing in common.
I was going to ask if you went to that. So that's really cool. You got to go to Avondale and you get to meet your fellow female racers or personalities, journalists, whatever role that women are in. And it's like, it's so awesome that we're doing this because I can tell you, not even 10 years ago, we weren't even doing things like this. So I agree to your point. Women are finally getting their opportunities, their voices, their platforms. And that's exactly we're why we started in the first place with the podium finish. We wanted to promote women racers, and we're getting back to that because your story, in particular to me, really appeals to me because I have two older sisters, I have a mother, and they're amongst my biggest inspirations and role models. And I have a niece who I've told you about. She loves racing, and I'm just here thinking, man, your dad's really brave to let you race a go-kart, but then he's got the racing experience. But I've got to ask you, going back to your career, you mentioned about being 8 years old and going in a go-kart, a cadet kart to be specific. What do you remember when you were behind the wheel of that machine and you're going full speed, at least by yourself on the track? I know you mentioned about going the right lines. Was it sort of like a, hey, I just want to figure out how this feels, or I like this, let me go faster?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I don't think I've actually sat down and like thought about it, but if I look back and realize like what I took from that experience, I always thought that going to the track was fun and I was like excited to drive. I'm like, I don't really know like what makes this thing go fast. I don't know how it works, but all I know is that it's fun and that I have to hit the apexes and track out. And you know, my dad would always stress the three important parts of a corner, right? Track in, apex, and track out. And so that's literally all I was thinking in my mind, like every freaking lap, every corner, like I was just like so focused. I mean, I was having fun, but I was like, all right, track out, right? Break, apex, and then and that dynamic was fun to me because of the process of like thinking about each corner and going into it. I was just having the time of my life. And then down the straightaway, I was like, yeah, like I was just like I was loving the speed, and I do remember that specifically. Um, but I do think that that made a very strong foundation for me now, even though I started karting when I was 8 and then did it for a few years, just doing like time trial stuff. And then I stopped and then restarted when I was 15, actually competitively racing. Even though there was that big gap, I think doing it for that small time when I was young, like really set a foundation for my racing career, even just like even if it was subconsciously, I think it all helped. But going back to what you were asking, I think most I didn't know anything about it, but I was just having fun and I knew what I had to do on track, and I would get out of the cart and hang out with my dad, and it was a fun family bonding experience.
I love it because it's like you got to have time with your father growing up because every dad wants to have their time with their kids, especially when they're teenagers, which let's face it, I've been a teenager and I know I probably wasn't the greatest kid, but I tried my best and you're still a teenager, but you're accomplishing a lot more than most of us did at that age. And it's so cool that you're able to be like not only acclimating to the cart, but you're like, okay, I got to get these three nuances in. Like it sounds very matrixy to me, but you have to. So it's
Yeah.
like growing up, I think, like you said, when you were 8, you were learning how to do the basics. And then you turn 15, you're like, all right, I got the mechanics now. And, when I think about race car drivers, they often start off young. But you said if I started younger, I would have had better experience. But in a way, do you think I've only been doing this professionally for the last 3 years. It's kind of actually given me an edge to learn a little bit faster than if I were 8 years old and I have 7+ years of experience.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. But, if you look at some like there are kids who start in karting at 7 years old, right? And they stick with it. And they're honestly like they're legendary. Like they're really good. And then they move up to cars and it's the natural, or they move up to open wheel, but it's the natural progression, right? They learn racecraft super young. And the thing for me, I feel like if I stuck with it, either one of two things would have happened. One, I would have, stuck with it, enjoyed it, and had a lot more experience and been way farther than I am now. Don't get me wrong, I've progressed very fast for my career. But I'm still like overcoming a learning curve of just basic stuff that I'm like, dang, if I had more experience, this wouldn't be a problem. But number two, I might have gotten burnt out. And if my dad was forcing me and he said, you know what? No, I'm going to make you go to the races and I'm going to make you race, instead of saying, I don't want to be that dad. I don't want to be that dad to force you to do anything. And that's what he said. And so I chose not to. But I could have been burnt out by now and not been racing at all at this point in my life. I could be doing like, I don't know, working at a gas station. I don't know. Um, just to say that, like, I think everything happens for a reason. Um, I think that the stars aligned, and it was just, no, you need to be doing racing because you're cut out for it. And I truly do believe that. I think that the universe is saying that this is where I need to be. I feel like everything is flowing right now, especially this time in my life, and feel like I am where I'm supposed to be. And I was supposed to lose interest earlier, and stop and then come back to have that mindset change, because it was like a switch had flipped. One morning I woke up and I was like, Dad, you know what? That racing thing was kind of cool. Like, can we do that again? And if that didn't happen, who knows where I would be now. So
Well, I'd be very sad if he didn't do racing because we wouldn't have this conversation, first of
for
all, from a
sure.
personal level, but professionally, we wouldn't have the great story that we're talking about right now. So that's a really mature and awesome perspective. I never thought of it that way. So I'm glad you did have that little pause because here you are, you're 18 years old and you're doing such amazing things. We're going to get to that here in a second. The one thing I think, I know you probably talked about this in previous interviews, but the one thing that really kind of touched my heart was like your dad traded his boat and your club car to get you that spec Miata so that you could compete at America's serpentine road courses. And what did it mean for you for to see your father believe in you that much to be like, you know what, I love that boat, but I'd rather you, Sally, have the best equipment, the best chance to compete for podiums and victories.
Well, it certainly does mean a lot to me because living where we do, we don't get to go to the beach that often. And my dad, I was born in California and he was also born in California. And, being close to the ocean all the time, now that we're in Texas, we don't get that luxury. And that was really his only escape, was his boat, like to go fishing and be on the water. And he always said he loved two things, racing and fishing, but he loved racing just a little bit more, right? And he would always go on his boat, and it was kind of like his beloved second child almost. And to get my first club car, to get into spec Miata racing, we needed that chunk of money. And without it, like, there's no way I would be where I am right now. And so he had to sell it, and it meant so much to me because I know how much he wants it for me. I want it just as much as he does, and for him having that background in racing, he understands what it takes. It takes lots of sacrifice and it does take money. I mean, obviously, racing is one of the most expensive sports in the world. And so when he did that, touched a part of my heart that never felt before. And he's definitely my number one supporter. He believes in me more than anybody else. And so it meant a lot, truly.
I think that was a really cool part to learn about with your journey. And in a way, I'm kind of thinking, well, when you get to be in MX5 next year and you win races and you make a career out of this, I bet you'll get your dad a boat eventually so that you guys can go
Oh, for
to
sure.
the Gulf for sure. So
You
he's not
know,
lost.
Oh no, for sure. Like a boat for sure, and then his dream car is a red Ferrari. So that's gonna be the first thing when I have the funds. Obviously making smart financial decisions. But when I'm up there, I'm gonna pay for it for sure.
Well, at least he has a really good daughter to make that happen. And I know you'll make it happen because you've gotten this far. You've gone from karting, and a lot of kids growing up, either, like you said, they want to continue it on or they realize it's not for them. And, here you are, you're actually racing an MX5 next year. But it wasn't that simple because you did race at Road Atlanta, I believe, in October for the Petit Le Mans. And that race alone, you had two races, if I recall. Race number one, you pretty much got your feet wet, but race number two had a bit of an interesting moment, if I recall, right?
Yeah, it was yeah. So race number one was pretty intense, just taking the green flag for the first time. Just getting my head wrapped around that, like, oh my gosh, this is Petit Le Mans. There's literally 1 million people there. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of people. um, so race one was kind of just getting my feet wet, like you said. And then race two, there was some carnage in front of me, like literally like right in front of me, and I avoided it. And unfortunately, that is the reason why I was able to receive top finishing female, which is not the way I would want to receive it because, by default, since the other girl got taken out, I got it by default, which is not how I roll. Like I'm used to, I'd rather earn it, but a win is a win, right? I mean, for my first race, it's pretty cool to say that I got to stand on the podium, right? So I'm not complaining by any means. I mean, it was pretty awesome. Like me and my dad celebrated after, and it was a cool experience. But the whole weekend in general, I was such a good learning experience for my racing career. Like I learned so much that I've learned that like this much in 2 days than I did in 6 months of my normal racing. So I loved it, and I'm excited for the next season because the paddock at the MX5 Cup, it just feels like family, and everyone is so willing to help and super supportive because they want more females. You know, like they're just, if anything, they want more drivers. They're just super supportive, and I'm just thrilled to be a Mazda driver for next year. So
It's an exciting situation because you're going to be racing in a series that, a lot of, major sports cars, NASCAR tracks, IndyCar tracks in general. And you're living a dream that many young racers are wishing they could experience. But to get to that path to become a factory driver, you had to take part in a grueling challenge earlier this month in November. And I watched a bit of it. I obviously kept track of it. But when you did enough with just the on-track techniques and then the interviews you had to do, when you learned that you were the this year, the scholarship winner, what did it mean to you? Was it like a life flashing before your eyes kind of moment? Like, oh my goodness, I've done this. Like, what was it like?
well, I remember, it's not like it was this long ago, but I remember standing there and they Shay Adams, shout out to Shay, I love her. She was saying, okay, we're announcing the Women's Initiative Award right now. And dude, all I felt was my heart just boom, boom, boom. And like there was like a burning in my chest. Like I wanted it so bad. And I didn't know that I wouldn't be able to hold back tears if I didn't. So I was just like trying. I was just like, if they don't call my name, I need to like turn away or something. Just like I don't want to show that emotion, but it was so strong that I didn't think I could control it. Um, and then she called my name, and then there was applause because I went back and watched the live stream. There was like people were clapping, but I don't remember that. Like it was after she said my name, I didn't hear anything. I was like, oh my god, like what? I was like freaking out, but I tried to like. I walked up and then I grabbed the check and the trophy. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, this is not real. This is not real. And let me tell you, 2 days later, no, I woke up the next day and I'm like, nah, this isn't real. This did not happen. And then I woke up. It took 2 days for me to like really internalize it and like let it sink in. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is crazy. And so to answer your question, I wanted it so bad that like it didn't sink in when I got it because I was just like, what? And so it took 2 days to sink in. And now I'm still kind of like, what? Until the season starts, it's gonna really, really like feel normal. But I wanted it really bad, and it just felt awesome to be able to be awarded something so powerful and something that you've wanted for, a year. It's great. So I'm just honored.
I love the reaction because like when your photos don't do justice, but I could tell from the inside you're just like, I have to be calmly excited that you're like you just said right now, you're like, oh my God, I did it. And is it one of those situations where you kind of hoping that someone doesn't pinch you to make you realize you were just living a dream? Or have you finally accepted it? And when you get to Daytona, it becomes even more real.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the iconic Daytona. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I cannot even see straight. But I mean, I think I've realized it that it's real. It just feels like crazy because I just started my racing career only 3.5 years ago in karting, and now I'm gonna be running a full season in the MX5 Cup. I feel like I skipped I feel like it's supposed to be karting, spec Miata, spec MX5, and then MX5 Cup. But like I skipped everything in between, and I'm like, boom, boom. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't just happen. Like, I don't know. like I said, everything is meant to happen for a reason, and I really believe that, and I'm a like firm believer of that more than ever now because of what's happened to me in my story. So it's really cool.
Well, good things happen to good people like you. And then, hey, if I have to make a good comparison, it's like you went from high school to grad school. So
Right?
you you are definitely made to do it. You can do this. And what's awesome is that you kind of talked about your journey a little bit. I'm kind of curious if you had the chance to go back to 2013 and talk to your 8-year-old self, what would you be sharing advice-wise about what you've experienced on and off the racetrack?
Well, I would definitely I would definitely tell myself it's not going to be easy. Don't The second you get too confident is the second you lose it all. Like if I, think of, oh no, last session I was so fast and I've got this. I do not got this. Like it's that has happened to me multiple times. I'm like, dude, I just need to learn this lesson already because you have to stay humble in racing. And it's so easy to just be like, no, I'm good. I got this, right? And not worry or not do your homework off the track to be prepared. Another thing that I would say is, you know, there's going to be haters. There's going to be people who don't want you to succeed on the track and off the track. There's going to be people who try to make you spin out or crash into you. And there's going to be people that say, you can't do this. This is impossible. Nobody's done this before. You can't do this. But you can. And I've proved it. I've actually experienced that. And then I went out and literally did the thing they said that I couldn't. So I think those are some valuable lessons, and I would definitely tell my younger self that, just to stay encouraged, because it is discouraging sometimes. But if you go through it and you just do it, don't overthink it, you'll be fine.
I like that. It's great advice, and it reminds me of something that one of my favorite celebrities told me a year ago, and I'll share it with you off this after this interview. But it's true. You have to take your good days and your bad days. You enjoy the support you have. You get fueled by those who may not support you, and you just do your very best. And if you do, you're living life, and that's exactly what you should be doing. And it's just so cool because you do live life. You're not only talented as a race car driver, you are a skilled fisher, you are a podcaster like me, you also do journalism, and you often do modeling with cars. And I think it's so cool that you just have so much that you do. And I know I'm an energetic person, but for those who are not, like, how do you keep up with all that stuff?
Well, that's a good question. I'm actually just now like learning how to like juggle everything because it's a lot. And being a full-time race car driver, right, it's not just going to the track. It's actually more like business side stuff and putting together deals and writing blogs for my website or making content, posting on Instagram, posting on TikTok, putting together sponsorship deals. It's a lot. And then there's other stuff. There's a lot of traveling, and then a lot of networking, I'd say. But juggling things like that, like I feel like the thing that I've learned the most is making lists. Lists are your best friends, right? You want to wake up in the morning and know exactly what you want to do. Be like, okay, I got to get this done, this done, this done. Cross it off, cross it off. I'm done. I achieved everything in my day. Now I can go get a massage or go to the gym or whatever. I mean, for me, the gym is the priority. Getting on the simulator, reading my racing books, doing my research on sponsors, and always trying to get new people on board. And another thing is my social media, right? You got to keep up with the social media. It's a lot of work. I mean, you want to post every single day. You want to get stuff out there. You want to make sure people know who you are. I mean, it's a grind. It really is. And I don't think I could do this if I was, for example, like if I had like a 9 to 5 job, or if I was going to college to study something. Right now, I'm like putting all my energy into this. I'm taking this as a full-time job, and I'm treating it that way, at least. And I just don't know how you could do it without, like, it's a lot of work. But for sure, lists are your friends. And making schedules and Google calendars. That's a big one. I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
you have a lot of experience with that with all of your interviews and Zooms and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I'm making lists. I'm glad that you said that because I get teased about that, and I'm like, it's not a 30-year-old person's thing.
Yeah.
It's a smart person's thing because like if I forget to do something, I look like I'm crazy. So thank you, Sally, for mentioning that because people give me a lot of
No,
grief about that.
you can't remember all of the stuff you got to do. Like I'm always just like writing it in my phone, and then I'm like, okay, I'm on my notes app. I'm like, delete, delete, delete. Got that done, and it's so satisfying when you delete something because you achieved it, and then you're like, all right, delete, delete, and then you have nothing left. And you're like, yes, I did it. So that's just me though.
See, folks, that's why we're best friends. It's like that's why she won the Mazda MX-5 Women's Initiative
But
Scholarship
I
is to
made
be
a
my friend
list. Oh
because
yeah.
she made the list. That's why we're not here for the racing stuff, but I'm kidding. We're here for the racing stuff, of course. I got a couple more questions for you, and I'm having a great time, learning about you and having our fans learn about you. So I'm going to put you in the journalist seat again. If you had to use 3 words to describe who you are as a person and as a race car driver, what words would you use and why?
That's a good question. I would say one of the first word that comes to mind is determined. I feel like I feel this so deep in my heart and soul that this is where I need to be, that I'm gonna do anything I can do to make this work. So I'm determined to succeed in what I'm doing. Um, I think another one is I feel like I'm hardworking. I feel like I would sacrifice anything for this opportunity to make it work as much as it can work, and do all the research and do all the work behind the scenes to just let everything flow and go into place like it is, and very grateful for that. Um, Especially being a girl, I feel like I have to work harder, and I kind of love it because it's more motivating. Um, Another one, I would say, oh man, this is hard. On track, I would say this one's for on track. I would say a sponge. That's at least that's what I aspire to be, a sponge. So like learning everything I can on track and off track. I think this whole thing is a journey. And if you're not learning in life, then you're not living life. So I feel like I don't know. It's kind of a weird way to like a weird word to say, but I mean a sponge. It's perfect. Um, so yeah.
I get what you mean. It's like you're assimilating stuff. So you're very
Yeah.
inquisitive and you're knowledge seeking. So I get it. I say sponge too. So you're not unusual to say that 4 words. So I like that. Good choice of 3 words for that. Now, for my last question, hopefully not too trite. If you had the opportunity to build a racetrack anywhere around the world, where would it be and what kind of track would it be?
Oh my gosh. That is a really good question. Actually, I know the answer to this one. I would say Costa Rica. That's actually me and my dad's like favorite place to go to vacation, and we want to live there once we have the funds and stuff. We're gonna move to Costa Rica, but I would say a big track, Costa Rica, road course. It would have elevation for sure. It would be pretty flowy with some hairpins and some straightaways. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but Costa Rica for sure. Maybe even near like the beach, perhaps. I don't know.
Hmm.
That's a good question. Where do you come up with these questions?
I just think them out and I get it from ChatGPT. No, I'm kidding. I don't get them from AI. It's just questions I just have been inquisitive about over the years. So see what happens when you just converse with people. But no, I like that Costa Rica. I haven't been down to the south other than to Mexico. So I'm curious
Check
how
it
that
out.
is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. It's really nice.
I'd say I like Texas, but right now, I'm pretty sure you could say the same thing for yourself down in Victoria, but here in Texas, it's gotten cold, so it's like,
Oh yeah,
you
super
know,
cold right now, especially for us. But I feel like people in like Alaska, they're like, "Pff, that's nothing. You guys need to just grow some skin, man." like this is hot to them. So, but for us, I'm pretty cold.
Well, yes, because folks, I'm actually wearing long sleeve thermals. I don't usually, I
Uh-huh.
have my baseball shirt, so this is a cold one for us. But before we wrap things up, do you have anything else you want to say to the fans, to the folks at TPF about, your social media efforts, where they can find you?
Well, I guess I'll do a shameless plug.
Do it.
SallyMottRacing.com. That's my website, and then Sally Mott Racing is my Instagram, and I can't wait to hear from you guys. I love talking to people and especially fans who have questions. I'm super passionate about what I do, so I mean, I'd love to share the love. So ask me, DM me, whatever, and yeah, looking forward to it.
As you kids like to say, hit her up for some
Hit me
racing
up.
talk. Yeah, I don't know why we say that. It sounds so odd for my generation to say that.
Yeah,
Hit you up. But Sally, I had a great time chatting with you, and certainly this will not be the only time you're here on the hot seat because hopefully we'll get to catch up with you a lot in 2024, which is honestly not that far away, and that makes me feel pretty sadly old to say 2024.
I know. That's kind of crazy. Only a month away.
I
For
know it's depressing, but also exciting. But I had a
sure.
lot of fun, but hope to have you back on. And thank you so much for joining me. And we'll tell you more of your story here real shortly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.